Hello, I'm Alan Teal, and I'm going to be looking at the interview with Alton Garrison. Happy to participate in it. Thought it was a very profitable time spent. Of course, every time I've ever heard Brother Garrison speak, it's always been a profitable time. But a few things stood out to me, and I'll share those with you in this video. The first was that he talked about building processes. And what really caught my ear there was when he said, when you build a process, you're also building in serving. That part of the process is instructing or guiding people into service, finding their place in service, making the process not only work for the church, but also giving an opening for people to serve God through the process. And so it's all kind of built in together, which is a pretty significant thing. He also talked about when you the importance of building teams and the fact that teams bring ministry to the church, that they work together to get things done in a more a larger role. We'll just leave it at that. That was my interpretation of what he was talking about. The teams are really a positive thing, and I've seen and used teams in churches over the years, uh, from things as simple as a team that's going to make sure the church's cleaning is taken care of properly. When you're in a smaller church and you really don't want to have to pay money to clean the church, you can get a cleaning team put together. You can do other kinds of ministry teams. You can do teams that do the hospitality, teams that do the greeting, lots of different ways this works. Each team is functioning with people doing service inside the team and the team performing ministry for the church, for the community, for others. And so it's pretty a pretty significant thing. Then when he talked about vision statements, I don't think I'd quite heard it presented this way directly. It's been in some of the materials we've been looking at, but he talked about the three components that it has to involve. One is the passion of the leader. Certainly, the leader is the one who does the vision casting, the one who points in the direction the team is going to go or the direction that the church is going to go. But the second part of it was also you had to consider the ability of the people. Certainly, you don't want to ask people to do things that they aren't able to do, or they don't want to do, or they have no skills to do. They might be able to do it if they're trained, but they're not trained. So the abilities of the people, and you'd have to look at that. If you're going to have a worship team, you're certainly going to want to have people who have a talent for singing or a talent for music. Looking at their abilities, you can see that very easily in that kind of team. It's not always so easy to see when you have a greeting team, for example, who's going to actually be able to be happy meeting new people. You certainly don't want to put an extra introvert in that slot if they're very introverted, because they don't even some of them folks I've met that are introverts over the years didn't even want people to touch them. So if you want someone who's going to greet people and shake their hands or pat them on the back or give them a hug, maybe everybody's got a different way of doing things. Certainly, you want somebody who's comfortable with that, someone who can do it well. And then third, after the passion of the leader and the ability of the people, then you have to look at the needs of the community. It certainly doesn't help if you're meeting needs that nobody has. It's kind of like the old saying of the preacher who answered questions no one was asking. Uh, you know, eh, you want these things to be at least somewhat need driven. Obviously, if you're talking evangelism, there is always that need. People not realize they need Jesus, but there are always people who are going to need Jesus. Um, but but other needs maybe are easier to see. Certainly needs to work with the poor or the indigent or the itinerant, the people that are just moving through. You may need to know about those needs. There may be other needs. Your local school may have needs or whatever. And when you begin to put together your vision, you want to look at some of the needs of the community. Primarily, you want to deal with the ones your church can meet. You don't want to try to meet needs that are beyond the scope or ability of your church. If you see a need that's going to require 100 people and your church only has 50 in it, you certainly don't want to take that need on unless you can find a way to break it up into pieces. And that's kind of what I took from it. And there's a lot more there that could be spoken of. You could go on and on about that one topic. Um, he reminded us that without a vision, the people perish. I think most people in ministry keep that in mind, but I think sometimes we don't equate it to a vision that is thought out, one that is uh, fleshed out, so that people understand not only what it is, but how it operates and why it's important to them, why it's important to their community. And I think that's all part of the vision. It's not just about having a vision, it's about communicating that vision also. So it becomes very important, very necessary. And then he talked about, and having pioneered a church several years back, I certainly understood this and it kind of resonated with me that there's a difference between a launch process and an operational process. I can remember putting the preliminary things together. You have to establish a bank account. Any given church. Now, I've pastored several churches over the years, and anytime I walk into a church to pastor a church, it has some place for people to sit. It has a building. It has songbooks if they use songbooks. It's got equipment to put the lyrics on a wall or on a screen if it's necessary, or a TV set of some sort. Uh, it has a pulpit, frequently a platform. It has people who already are doing jobs. It has some programs in place. And so then you try to build into that. But when you're pioneering a church, you have to find a place to meet. You may have to come up with chairs for people to sit on. In the case of the church that I pioneered, we were getting a room that a local bank had available, a community room. And so every Sunday morning, we had to go in about an hour or more before church. We had to put out all the chairs that were stacked somewhere in the room. We had to carry in our own sound system. We had to carry in our own speaker stands. We had to carry, if we were going to use it, we had to carry it in. We had to carry in all the songbooks. We had to carry in whatever we were going to make use of. It had to go in the door with us. When we were done, it had to go out the door with us. And so we had to put all that together. We had to get the materials. We had to make sure we had a place. We had to get this and get that. And along the way, we had to make plans to buy property and to build a building. And there's a lot of different things that go into that before you can ever walk in one day and say, this feels like a church. And so, there's a huge difference there. And that certainly made a difference with me. And then finally, he talked about uh, the the vision statement being the universal mission, that it covered what the church was going to do, why they were there, maybe, but it was important. But that had to be anchored into the value statement so that the church knew the rules that everyone was going to live by. Then that would cause opportunities or give a place to know how the money was going to be spent, uh, to talk about the other things that they will or won't do, and even the time of the church was going to be spent, who they might hire, how does that fit into the core values of the church? So a value statement becomes very important. And lastly, and I want to close with this, he talked about another interesting thing about unity. And he just made a simple statement and he said, unity equals blessings, or that's the way I perceived it. I don't think that was a quote, but I think it's important that we understand that in any church environment, unity is very, very important. We understand that there are times whenever we have to take a stand against something, when we have to upset people because they are misdirected. But by and large, a church needs to move forward in unity. It's why we vote in church, to find out if there's enough agreement to move forward. You can't move forward if you're dragging a third or a half of your church with you. You might win the election or win the vote, but you need unity. And when you have unity and people are working together and they're outward focused, then the blessings of God will begin to pour in. Thank you. Bye.